I will tell you, we are managing a list of about 200 different goals and initiatives, and within the first 2 years, we've been able to close out about 30% of them. There's always a lot of discussion about the judicial, the legislative, and the executive branches, but really keying in on the actual relationship that exists between the federal, state, and local it's important. It's important for the vitality of our communities and for the longevity of this entire country. One of the things I will say is public service can be very relaxing when you build real relationships with the community. Every day is a blessing, even though there are so many challenges. You wake up with the ability to open the door of access for so many people, and they trust you if you build the relationships the right way. And there's really nothing better than that.
Welcome to the Good Government Show. I'm Dave Martin, and you're about to hear a conversation with Jerica Richardson, a county commissioner in Cobb County, and that's suburban Atlanta, Georgia. Jerica has been a county commissioner for all of 2 years at the time we talked to her in the spring of 2023. But that gives her a new perspective on government and what she sees as a newly elected official. And just halfway through her term, she was hit with a new problem. Some redistricting put her home, that's the house where she lives, outside of her elected district. So listen as we discuss how this happened and how she's dealing with that. Her job as a county commissioner is only a part-time job. Her full-time job is as a project manager with a credit services company. She holds a biomedical engineering degree from Georgia Tech. She's run political campaigns, and she started her own business. We really like talking with new and younger elected officials, and Jerica really has jumped into this job, and that's something we really like to see. So in a minute, you're going to hear my conversation with County Commissioner Jerica Richardson, and I hope you too will be inspired knowing that new commissioners are filling in the ranks of elected officials. I'll have that conversation coming up after the break. The Good Government Show is sponsored by NACo. That's the National Association of Counties. County government is actually the oldest form of government in the United States, and it touches more people directly. Roads, highways, hospitals, schools, recycling, law enforcement, water and sewers. In most of the country, those services are maintained by the county. That's county government. NACo is a nationwide organization that represents all 3,069 counties across the USA. NACo helps county government work better together through things like sharing best practices, because when county government works well, that's just good government. Welcome to the Good Government Show. This is a conversation with, and right now we're having a conversation with Jerica Richardson. If you would, introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, what your title in government is, and where you live.
Sure thing. So my name is Jerica Richardson, as stated. I'm originally from New Orleans, but I've been living in Cobb County, Georgia for almost 20 years. Yeah, since 2005, so we're getting there, and represent part of Cobb County. And
kind of an interesting story. What got you to Cobb County and to Atlanta?
Yeah, on the heels of Hurricane Katrina, and all of what came with that.
What happened where you lived? Where were you living in?
So New Orleans East is where the house was completely
gone.
Left. Yeah, there were walls, but that was about it.
Really? Is the house been rebuilt? Is that street?
I haven't been back there.
You haven't?
No. We were staying there. So,
yeah.
But when we moved to Georgia, that was the decision, and we resettled in Georgia. I was 16 at the time.
Okay,
so.
You didn't get a lot of choice.
You know.
But you haven't been back to New Orleans just to look at it?
We do go visit, but just haven't visited that house. It wasn't one that we owned. It was one that we had rented out, and. We go back down to visit the rest of my family. So my mom's actually the youngest of 10.
Oh, my.
And so I have a very big family down there.
I guess you do.
Everyone's related to me. And so we would go down there every month, at least once a month pre-COVID.
All right. And have you've been back since, I hope?
Certainly.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Biggest difference between Atlanta, Georgia, and New Orleans, Louisiana?
There are a lot of differences, including the legal structure.
Okay.
It's probably the obvious one, but there's something unique about the culture in New Orleans, and I think it's just tied to the history of how it was created and how it was settled and just the different pieces there. Whereas Atlanta is truly a melting pot of a lot of different influences, and it's special because of that. So I absolutely enjoy it because it's like a slice of America everywhere you go.
Okay. How long have you been a county commissioner?
2 years.
2 years.
And counting.
How's it going?
It's been fascinating lately.
What made you decide to run for office?
Well, I knew that I could make a difference in this particular role as a Cobb County Commissioner.
And this is your first ever in politics?
Definitely my first elected position, but
okay.
I was not new to politics.
All right.
I worked on several other campaigns prior, mayoral and state legislature and the school board as well.
And the whole time were you thinking, I know what I'm going to do when I run?
Well, it was a little bit in conversation with some of my peers at the time, and some of those that have been clients, I guess you can refer to them as.
Okay.
But I read through the local legislation, saw all of the different powers that the county commissioner had, the full jurisdiction. And when you think of power, water, soil, air, economic development, libraries, parks, roads, the list goes on and on, 911 emergency, police, fire. There's so much that could be done to help.
Did you have a background in any of those things?
Not in those things particularly, but certainly as a resident and certainly through relationships with the community. And then obviously from the perspective of a state legislator or a school board member or a mayor. But for me personally, it was certainly new territory being a commissioner. And
what made you think that county commissioner is where I want to start my career in politics?
Like I said, it was reading through the through our local enabling legislation. It spells out exactly what could be done. And there were some things that I knew Cobb County, we were, especially at that time, that 2020 election year was the year that I got elected.
Okay.
And seeing the way that disinformation would spread and how it has really broken apart a lot of our communities, I thought that there was something unique that I could bring, the idea of bringing people together. And so my message that I brought to the community was something that I experienced coming off of the heels of Katrina. It was when we choose to love one another as opposed to be fearful of one another, we could come together and overcome any obstacle. So
let's hope so. Let's hope the work continues.
That was the whole thing.
Now, we talked a little bit before we started the formal interview. I understand that you have a map issue. You have a sort of a tenuous hold on your seat. Is that fair?
It's certainly a fascinating thing to watch.
So what happened? What happened?
So normally there is a process that the state delegation takes in creating maps, right? Especially during census years. We're required to every 10 years to look at the maps, but it is not limited to that. So maps can be looked at every year. We're in a census year, and so the state delegation, they tend to go with the local delegation. These are the state reps that are elected that represent a local jurisdiction, like a county.
Okay.
So the Cobb County delegation, as in normal practice since the beginning of Georgia's creation,
yes.
They would develop a map. Well, in this particular time, a couple of members outside of, without the help of the delegation, decided they would create their own map. And that map got placed, which included having my house outside of my district.
Your house?
My house.
Was it personal?
I would like to think not. I think it's just a matter of politics, right? Anytime you see redistricting, politics comes into play. However,
But did they know that was your house?
Possibly. Okay. I think there's a lot to be discovered there. But the issue that came about is because my house was drawn out of my district in the middle of my term, it meant that it would come into direct conflict with our residency clauses.
Okay.
Which means I would have to resign 2 years early. So I would not be able to fulfill my 4-year term. And so this, of course, would set off a lot of constitutional issues.
But you're 2+ years into your term. Two
plus years now. Exactly. Here I am today.
So you're still there.
So the county did an action. We read through the Constitution as well, and the county attorney found that in home rule, there's a provision that allows or permits a local jurisdiction to amend or repeal a local bill.
Okay.
So we amended the state legislature's map to the map that the local delegation had put together because it had already passed all of the constitutional apportionment requirements.
So are you a lawyer? Are you well familiar with legal briefs? And,
you just run across these things sometimes, and they're interesting, right?
Uh-huh.
So in this situation, the Constitution was leveraged, and I am clearly still here today
Okay.
but certainly it is a hot topic of discussion.
Are you confident you'll be able to get through your 4-year term?
I hope so, for the sake of the Republic of Georgia.
And if you run for re-election, are you going to have to go to a different district?
No, not under the county's map.
Okay.
Under the county's map, I can finish my term and run for re-election.
Run for re-election. That must be sort of a kind of a dark shadow that just sort of looms over your shoulder.
I tell you, it was not on my bingo card for my first term in office.
Fair enough. So, other than trying to figure out where you live, what's going on in Cobb County?
So we've got plenty of issues, things that are probably very familiar to a lot of jurisdictions around, certainly the state and around the country, I'm sure, but housing availability, access to health care, transportation investments that we definitely need to key into.
Okay.
That's really at the top of the docket. And certainly ARPA has been a big topic of discussion over the last year or so, working with the community partners to see what could be done as appropriate investments.
What are you hearing from the community? What are the things that they're interested in?
So a lot of it does fall under the economic development aspects and looking at different programs that can help facilitate those types of pipelines, whether it be with specific segmented communities, women's groups, veterans, etc. But I will say that the county in advance, there are some other aspects of ARPA that are specifically tied to public funds. Those are more tied around the courts, public safety, and infrastructure. And
are any particular issues near and dear to your heart?
Oh, there are plenty.
You can't have plenty.
I do.
You can't have too many.
I will tell you, we are managing a list of about 200 different goals and initiatives, and within the first 2 years, we've been able to close out about 30% of them.
All right, that's progress.
Yes, it is progress, but infrastructure is one of those big ones. We know that we have a huge climate impact to our infrastructure. The problem is where public infrastructure meets private infrastructure, we run into a huge gratuities clause issue, which means we have really nice new infrastructure that connects to old infrastructure that no one can touch.
Why?
Because it's private.
Oh.
So we are facing some really serious issues down the line if we don't get ahead of it.
2 years into the job, what is it about the job that you just kind of hit you out of left field? Like, oh, I had no idea it was going to be like this.
Cobb has certainly been of interest in many different ways. I don't know if the listeners recall, but the All-Stars game that was supposed to come, and then there was the entire issue with that and SB 202, and so that we lost that. That was in my district.
Okay.
We certainly had the World Series. That was really exceptional, but it's been a very interesting tango with the state legislature and looking at ways in which we can better partner, because there's always a lot of discussion about the judicial, the legislative, and the executive branches, but really keying in on the actual relationship that exists between the federal, state, and local it's important. It's important for the vitality of our communities and for the longevity of this entire country. And if this map issue doesn't bring that home more clearly, I don't know what does. But it really is important that the checks and balances exist and that people are empowered with understanding how all of these different groups work together. Just like you mentioned with ARPA, when the president signs a check, if you're not seeing those benefits in your community, it's because of our level. We're the operational level.
Okay.
So,
being a Cobb County commissioner is not a full-time job. Do you have a full-time job?
I do have a full-time job, and it's only
something nice and easy where you can relax.
I know, right? It's so by law, the county commission is a part-time job,
but it really isn't.
The chair is a full-time job, but yes, I'm one of the district commissioners, so therefore it is a part-time. But it is split with my full-time job.
What is your full-time job?
I am a program manager at Equifax, and they are wonderfully accepting of what I do to give back to the community.
So it's like, I'll be in Saturday morning. Sorry, I'm not going to be around Friday afternoon.
No, it's honestly worked out extremely well, to the point that most people aren't even aware that I'm also an elected official in the office.
So do you get time off, days off? Do you relax? Do you?
You know, I do, but one of the things I will say is public service can be very relaxing when you build real relationships with the community.
Okay.
Yeah, I have members over to my house all the time of the community just to maybe feed them or talk about what's interesting, and it's a friendship. It's a relationship that exists between the local government and those that they represent.
So we have a questionnaire that we've prepared, and this is going to get to the heart of where what your thoughts are on government. Are you ready for this?
Okay, I hope so.
Some of these are easy, some of these aren't.
Okay, let's do it.
So you're a county commissioner. From where you sit, 2 years in, define good government.
Good government, I'll say, you know the 80-20 rule?
Go ahead, explain it.
Where, you've got 80% of the work or what have you is equivalent to 20% of what's left, and you also have the idea that 80% of the people might agree with you, 20% won't.
Right.
It's just a rule that's pervasive in a lot of different areas. And so when it comes to governance, I really, really care to make sure that my community is as aware and understanding of the decisions that I'm making on their behalf, that it is truly a representative democracy, a republic.
Okay.
And so good governance to me is predicated in that amount of transparency and level setting with your community, being honest, being forthright, so that you can have complex conversations. Because there is no issue that comes across my desk that's simple.
So how do you know if you're providing good government? How do you hold yourself accountable to live up to that?
I ask. We have surveys that go out. I do town halls. We actually have a quarterly report town hall where metrics get listed, and we have North Stars as a community. I do an annual priorities tour.
And what happens when you get that thing that says, she's too young, she's too new, she doesn't know what she's doing? How do you take that?
If it's something that can be turned into action or a policy, we absolutely focus in on it. And I jokingly say I like to put people to work.
Yeah.
So if someone comes to me with a suggestion, I say, well, great. Do you want to work on that with me? Let's work together and let's make it happen.
Do they say yes?
Many of them do. So I actually have a lot of people that do a lot of things around.
You have a lot of people
district.
working for you.
We work together.
Okay, good. How do people know if they're getting good government? What should they use as their yardstick to find out if you and the other commissioners are providing the government that they are looking for or asking for?
I mean, it's understanding what are you expecting from the person who you've elected. On the campaign trail, people make a lot of promises.
Right.
How are they walking it out? How are you holding them accountable to what it is that they said they were going to do? And are you understanding of what it is that's being asked? And so it is a two-way street. But someone who is a true public servant is going to do everything in their power to reach out to as many people to connect.
And if they're not getting what they think they should be getting, if they think that you're not living up to their expectations of you, what should they do?
Vote you out.
That's it?
No, it is about letting you know. It is about letting you know, because a real representative democracy is
How do you want them
that.
to let you know?
I have a lot of different avenues personally, but it can be.
You taught yourself how to code, you said.
I did. I actually built a website just for my constituents, so all of the things are there for them.
Okay.
We have a lot of processes inside the office. I have a cabinet, a community cabinet with 27 members.
Do you ever once in a while go in there and just read comments? Or is that too disheartening?
No, I mean, I hear it all.
Okay.
And the importance is acknowledging that everyone has a perspective that they're bringing to the table.
What would you like? I think you said it before. You said government is complicated. What would you like people to know as now a government insider, as a politician? What would you like people on the outside to know about government?
It moves a lot faster than you'd think.
It does.
And the main reason it feels like it moves slowly is because it's such a transparent process. Every single decision has to be made before the public. Everything.
Okay.
And that's very different from the corporate world.
Yes, it is.
So, you'll hear the question, well, why is it taking so long for this? And it's like, because we had to approve the request, we had to approve the budget, we had to approve the bid, we had to, the statement of the bid, we had to approve the bid, we had to approve the design, we had to approve everything, every single step.
That sounds slow to me.
Because
Sorry.
It's your taxpayer dollars. But it's fast in the sense that it's going as fast as it possibly can while still maintaining that balance of transparency.
You said politics is something you've always sort of used as a hobby. Who are your political heroes?
Oh, I haven't thought about that one as much. I got
to ask it.
I know. I think what I've shared, my community is very inspirational. And that's not just a tagline. There's actual story, and I am constantly inspired by my community. But also history in general. Yeah. And if I were to, because it's hard to just pick out individuals because it's a tapestry, but history itself, I know the kind of sacrifices that my lineage has made for me to be able to exist at this point. And so when I think about all of the different decisions and the backgrounds and ingenuity and creativity and collaboration and then even the wars that we've had to endure, there's so much there to be inspired about and bring to the job every single day. I am one of those true believers that if you ignore history, you are doomed to repeat it.
So your hero is everyone who's gone before you?
Guess so.
All right, now, this is a harder question.
Oh, boy.
All right. Born in Louisiana, in New Orleans, you were 16, moved to Atlanta, Georgia. You said that often you have, friends, constituents over to your house for dinner. What are you making them? What's your dish? What are you cooking?
Etouffee and jambalaya.
Oh, you go back to Louisiana.
I do it. But also, I'll do the normal things too, like salmon and steak and. I try to dress it up.
Yeah, you started with etouffee. That's where you began.
Now, at times my mother will actually join me for some of this because she's a fantastic cook. Because my 80% recipe of a job, my mom has the 100% there, and so she will also sometimes whip up some things for those that are visiting over.
Mom, could you make what would you ask?
She'll do a gumbo or something like that. Yeah. Okay. And her etouffee is a little bit better than mine.
Crawfish? What she
crawfish etouffee. Her favorite's shrimp etouffee, but yeah, we'll do shrimp or crawfish etouffee.
And you're okay with it, either one. Whatever mom makes, you're good with.
I'm good with it.
You alluded to this a little bit. You said that it was just a hobby for you. Like, you said you went to Georgia Tech, I think you were telling me. Were you president of the class there? Were you...
I was okay.
Politician as a kid? Stuffing envelopes, knocking on doors?
So the first campaign I worked on... I believe it was my sophomore year in college, and it was a mayoral race.
All right.
And he won.
Good.
And so all of those relationships, along with the city council, were also relationships. And then I had...
Are you still in touch?
Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah, really good. As a matter of fact, the current mayor was one of my mentors when I was at Tech.
Oh, nice.
So good relationships all around.
You could pick up the phone and you could say, hey.
We have, he's a great guy and always been that way.
I want to bring it back to Cobb County and the work that you've done. Tell me something in the last 2 years that you've accomplished that that really made a difference for the folks.
So there are a few things. One that really, we've done some softer things like working on making sure that DD 214s can make it into veterans' hands because there was a little bit of a slow up after the pandemic with the National Archives. And then on the other side of that, we worked in collaboration with the Sheriff's Office and the DA to really to set aside within our prison a pod for veterans as well to make sure that they had access to the resources that they needed and some rehabilitation programs that they were promoted. And we actually got a muralist to paint. She's also a veteran, but she painted it was just a beautiful unveiling and something that the veterans in the prison really appreciated as a part of saying, we do care about you. You're not an afterthought. That was significant. Also stood up, supported an arts, what's known as it's a creative placemaking committee at this point that started off as a smaller thing, but once people heard about it, all of the different arts communities around in the county wanted to hop in. So now there is a way for us to target all of the tourism activities around the arts, music, etc., and facilitate economic development along all of those different corridors. Certainly been a lot of...
You were from New Orleans.
Yeah.
Are you a musician of any stripe?
So part of the reason that I even got into politics in Atlanta, met the Atlanta political scene, was through music. I used to sing.
You used to?
I used to I was trying to break into the music industry.
Really?
And a lot of... entertainment.
What's your music genre?
I rap, hip hop, and R&B, but I was trained in opera.
Of course.
So it makes for a very interesting...
Trained in opera.
Yes.
Have you performed at operas and sang?
I've done private showings for, there were just a few companies that had events.
Do they
and so
call you to
and I'll sing some arias or something like
Wow.
that. Yeah.
No kidding. Do you keep up with it?
Not as much. No, not as much. After college, I kind of abandoned it.
Do they call you up for baseball games to do American Beautiful? Or
I have not told them. Although I did sing the Star Spangled Banner for our ATL rugby game. I wanted them to get some press, some PR.
So wait a minute. Now see, you just said the magic words. We're going to be here a while.
Oh boy.
Sorry about this. The reason why my knee is I had a knee replaced 3 weeks ago because after 42 years of rugby.
Wow.
Yes.
But wow. Right? Also, you're moving around. That's amazing.
Very, very,
3
very,
weeks.
very, very slowly. I'm moving around.
Still.
So you caught the ATL Major League Rugby game.
I did.
And you sang.
I did.
And who won?
I don't remember.
Don't remember?
I think we did. I think we did.
Was it this season or last season?
This was when I first got elected.
Okay.
Yeah, so last season.
Well, I'm sure they'd be happy to have you out again. I'm going to make some calls to make sure that happens. I know a couple of guys.
We had a great time.
Assuming that they figure out where you live and where your district is, do you see yourself having a future doing this?
Oh, I love it. Every day is a blessing, even though there are so many challenges. You wake up with the ability to open the door of access for so many people, and they trust you if you build the relationships the right way. And there's really nothing better than that.
So this is something you think you have got a future with.
I love it.
You do.
I do.
This has been a great conversation with Jerica Richardson, a county commissioner from Cobb County, Georgia. Thank you so much for stopping by. It's been a pleasure to meet you and talk to you.
Likewise. Thank you. And keep doing what you're doing. This is fantastic and a wonderful mission.
All right. We're going to get you out to sing again.
Thanks.
Thank you. The Good Government Show is sponsored by Ourco. That means our community. Ourco has found a way to make government even more effective. Ourco provides a platform that blends in-person and digital interactions, and that connects people with their government. Their mobile app transforms meaningful conversations into reliable data, and the result is actionable insights that inspires a positive change. It's sort of like having a flash poll. Do you want to know if the community would rather have a dog park or a bike trail? Ourco can get you an answer immediately from the folks in your community. With Ourco, you can engage your citizens or any group, learn what they want, and build programs and policies that advance your county, your job creators, and your constituents. So visit Ourco.com, that's OURCO.com, and learn how they do it. And while you're there, book a demonstration. Well, how about that? I accidentally get to meet a county commissioner and the singer of the Star Spangled Banner at the Atlanta Major League Rugby game. How's that for luck, huh? Well, as you heard, Jerica started by reading. She looked to see what a county commissioner does and can do, and that really inspired her to run for her seat. Doing the research, always a good way to start. Let's hope she's able to keep her seat. And hopefully in the future, I'll get an invitation to one of those dinners and her mom's gumbo. All part of a good conversation with Jerica Richardson, Cobb County Commissioner. Join me again on The Good Government Show for another conversation with another government leader. I'm Dave Martin. Thanks for listening to The Good Government Show. The Good Government Show and A Conversation With is produced by Valley Park Productions. Jim Ludlow, David Martin, and David Snyder are the executive producers. Our editor and producer is Jason Stershic. This is The Good Government Show. Thanks for listening.